Hello and welcome to my channel. My name is Peter Abraham. I'm a second career registered nurse focused in the areas of advanced illness, typically those that would qualify for either palliative care or hospice care. Those are two separate types of services. I'm a certified end-of-life doula through the International Doula Life Movement, an avid writer having written over 500 healthcare articles, an avid author and self-publisher having published 21 books for hospice nurses. Many of them are used nationwide by various agencies for orientation and ongoing training. 24 books for caregivers. The latest one, The Hospice Journey, encouraged by Dr. Andy Arari, who works as a medical director in Miami, Florida. 5 books for holistic nurses, my latest validation in action on how validation and therapy can be used in different healthcare settings, and 6 books for my fellow end-of-life doulas. If you're new to this channel, welcome. Thank you so much for taking the time to visit. In this channel, we talk about issues related to death and dying. After all, we are all going to die. Wouldn't it be better if we understood what that process looked like? I'll have videos for my fellow hospice nurses, for my fellow holistic nurses, for patients, families, caregivers, and my fellow end-of-life doulas. The topic for today's video is going to be for my fellow end-of-life doulas and anyone who is an educator in healthcare. So if you're an educator in healthcare, whether you're an end-of-life doula, maybe you're a hospice educator, I know Nicole Watson, if you're watching this channel, I've been keeping you in prayer. She's trying to work with her company on getting them to hire specific positions for hospice education. That is so critically important. So I applaud that effort. So if these are types of videos that you like to see, to learn more about, have a curiosity about, please consider subscribing and hitting the bell notification below. I do my best to have videos out every Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, following the same schedule, by the way, for publishing new articles on compassioncrossing.info, dealing with articles about chronic illness, terminal illness in the same field. In fact, at the date of this filming, which is Monday, October 20th, this is going to be published probably the first Monday in November. I typically film in advance of publication. I had an article coming out as to how to be a death doula. Now, I have books on how to become a death doula, but this was an article that was very tight and focused on one of the caution areas. There, I cannot tell you how often I go to different groups and people are asking, I'm called to this, I'm called to this. How do I start? And there's one suggestion that is the most common suggestion that's given by multiple parties, but what the people that are giving the suggestion don't include, because we now live in a world where there's like 6-second commercials, our attention span's so short, they don't go over the big flags of caution for going down the route that they suggest. So on compassioncrossing.info, there's an article about if you go that route, there's pitfalls, lot of roadblocks, a lot of uh, pit potholes, and everything else that you need to be aware of, or you're in for a lot of heartache if you go down that journey. So before I go on to the topic for today's video, which is you're an end-of-life educator, which might be a hospice educator, might be an educator at large, might be an end-of-life doula, and you're wanting to expand your business in your community, I want to point out a critical resource, a couple for you in this video. Before I go much further, I want to ask the very important question, what are you grateful for? I cannot tell you the importance of building resilience, especially in the field of end of life. We get hit with storms on a regular basis. Sometimes we lost, it could be a pet, it could be a family member, a friend, a job, an opportunity. This past weekend, I had somebody that I've been working with remotely reach out, Peter, we're ready to contract with you. It would involve travel. I'm not going to go into a lot of details for HIPAA privacy matters so much, even though we're not technically bound by HIPAA, but I respect privacy. But it would involve several hours of travel. Uh, it would have involved a very difficult case, crisis. A lot of times we're involved in crisis. And so I had mapped out to the degree that I could, here's what that picture would look like. Here's what I'm thinking for what that picture would look like, both on what I'd be asking, what the deliverables would be, plan A, plan B, and so on. And it turned out it didn't come to fruition. Now that's not necessarily a bad thing, so that you're aware. I was so glad to hear that a family member took charge, so to speak. Not that they're the person who contacted me wasn't taking charge; they surely were. But another family is going to make the long drive, and because they are family, they have more of a connection than I would. Because in all transparency, and I try to do that through this channel, being transparent, I am a stranger in a strange land, no pun intended. So this would be a very close family member. And so it worked out great for them, but then there's the loss for me. And it's the loss, it's not just the financial loss that with this, but it's the loss of the opportunity, the loss to connect, the loss to be of service. There's micro losses in here, and they all add up. And I'm not saying that to moan and to cry and bemoan things. I'm sharing it there's an importance of building resilience. So when different things happen in your life, either to you, at you, toward you, to your people you love and care about, that you are not on the floor gasping for breath, crying and saying, I give up, because you've worked on over time building resilience. Three pillars. Third pillar, my opinion, my experience is gratitude. What are you grateful for? There's two other pillars. Ask in the comments below if you want to learn more. Now, getting on to the topics for today's video is those of you who've been following this channel know that my wife and I moved to Kentucky, Madison County in particular, from Pennsylvania late last year. In fact, around the corner, we're coming up to our anniversary, our 1 year anniversary. And you all know that here I started looking, I got my nursing license endorsed last December 13th, to be specific. I did renew. And my wife and I had this, it was not a joke in terms of laughter, but this common theme of, Peter, you're going to get the job first because nurses is in demand. And so I'm going to keep this as short as I can. But long story short is because I'm an avid writer, I literally published my 60th title this past weekend with Validation in Action. And so I'm an avid writer and self-publisher. I just looked this morning. I was curious. Month to date, this is October 20th. So I shared I filmed in advance. I shouldn't say month to date. Lifetime to date from my first book published to today is over 6,400 books sold. And this, by the way, is I published my first book in July of 24. So over 6,400 books. That's not Stephen King. That's not Barbara Carnes. That's not anybody of importance. It wouldn't make the any record, so to speak. I was just happy with the outcome. That's a gratitude point, by the way. But um, here, couldn't find part-time work because a part-time work in Kentucky is a minimum of a 12-hour shift. And most of those minimums, when I say minimum, like I was sharing even what I'm going to be going about this morning, I talked to the director of the inpatient unit at the local hospice agency here in Richmond, Kentucky, and they were I appreciate honesty through the roof. Yeah, a lot of shifts are 13 to 14 hours. Well, I believe in research. I'm a geek. And the research out there is after 8 hours, you have a high risk for making mistakes, high risk for burnout. And that's part of the reason why there's so much turnover, not just there, it's just in healthcare. They're not learning yet that 12 hours might not be the best thing. Anyway, I started my doula practice. I've been doing it remotely for close to 2 years. In fact, I think it's over 2 years now. I was doing a review, I think last week. I had a lady I helped in India for over a year, a lady in New York for a little over a year, and I've had more remote work, but I'm trying to build the business here in Madison County. So I officially started in May. That's when Compassion Crossing became Compassion Crossing LLC in May of 2025. And so I've been talking to those watching my journey through this. I've been saying, here's what's working and here's what's not working. And I want to give some advice to you, some clues, some ideas how to grow your business locally in the community. So one moment here, cup of tea. So I want you to put it on your radar if you've not done this already. I did this morning. I'm so grateful that Stacy Backetter, if I'm not killing the pronunciation of her last name, she is the lead for the Kentucky Medical Reserve Corps. So a couple things. One, in your state, most states in the United States of America have a medical reserve corps. And you do not need to be a medical support person. I happen to be, one moment, please bear with me. Apologize that these are unscripted. So I happen to be, a registered nurse. So, here, Kentucky Medical Reserve Corps. I did join. I think I started the application process toward the end of March, but join the local medical reserve corps. I'm an RN volunteer, but you could be a volunteer without a medical certification, license, etc. That gives you contacts. So Stacy was able to connect to me. And the reason I say what I'm about to say, cold calling, I'm being very blunt, sucks. Cold calling is horrible. I hate it to pieces. It is, and I'm not saying don't do it. I'll be doing a version of it later today. Um, but cold calling is yucky. You get the gatekeeper, the receptionist, and who's in charge of why are you calling? Who are you? And that's their job. So if you have a warm invitation where somebody introduces you and they connect you, the blessings are huge. So Stacy was able to connect me with Ava Wright, the director of nursing for Madison County Department of Health, and Amanda Smith, who is the lead educator for the Madison County Department of Health for Public Education. And so they were able to connect with me. And in fact, I was in email conversations with Amanda for a week or two, seeking their help. Could they send somebody to be part of my breast cancer awareness and prevention presentation at the Madison County Library in Berea, Kentucky? And they weren't able to. And Amanda, when we had our meeting today, said that she was sorry. And I said, Amanda, even though you couldn't, I appreciated the connection, the follow through, the willingness. This is what matters the most. It's not about getting yeses every time. The victory is in the relationships that you build and that you maintain and that you grow. The victory is in the relationships that you build, that you maintain, and that you grow. And so through Stacy providing the connection, and I did do a type of cold call, it was a cold email to the Madison County Department of Health, because at that time I was trying to work with Stacy on getting we're it's still, how to phrase this, it's the long game. I want to be a trainer, and they're trying to work with me on getting me trained on psychiatric first aid and allow me to be trainer so I could teach others psychiatric first aid. One of my I have a number of passions, loves, and trauma informed care is beyond, I don't know how to measure the value of that. That's why I am so keen on validation therapy, because it is an element of trauma informed care. It's an element of psychiatric first aid. And for right now, and that was one of the ouch for today. They don't teach psychiatric first aid in Madison County. That was one of my hopes for today, because Fayette, Franklin, um, I think it's Franklin County, or is it Fayette County? I'd have to look. But the Frankfurt's the capital of Kentucky, and that's where they do the training. And round trip with the way I drive, I'm not your lead foot. So for the way I drive would probably be uh, 2.5 to 3 hours round trip. And they do it as a 9 hour session. So you're talking about a 12-hour day. And so I'm trying to work through my own issues, but trying to stay on topic. I met with them, and this was so rich in terms of the rewards. So the rewards were, I now, they have my business card, they have my contact information, and they're going to talk to their people. And they, in terms of my short-term memories like this, so I take notes, you know, they said, here are points where I could be reaching out to, here there's a person specifically at Berea Home Village for me to talk to. There's the American Legion, there's the VA. And so they're connecting me to different portions where I could be of service in the community. So my fellow end of life doulas, and I'm going to do my best. This is a short video, short Peter style. Bear with me. So number one, if you're an end of life doula and you want to build your resources here, you want to build up your business, your outreach, please consider joining the local medical reserve corps. Please. Floods, hurricanes, natural disasters. They're going to be looking for people who are good at communicating to people who are in trauma. They're not necessarily at the end of life, but if you could talk to somebody at the end of life and build meaningful connections as an end of life doula, you'd be talking to somebody who in trauma who could potentially recover from that trauma. You could be of value to them. So one, join your local medical reserve corps. And you do have to advocate for yourself. I cannot stress that enough. The biggest lessons that I've been learning in my latter years of life is, just because you joined something or become part of something, it's not like somebody's going to come up to you. What do you need? Here's your portion. Do you need help eating it? You need to advocate. And the reason that I say that is, when I first joined the Kentucky Medical Reserve Corps, I went through the process, and then I'm like, when's orientation? And I was actually waiting on them to tell me. Well, after I was patient, I'm reaching out. I'm advocating for myself. I'd like it. Can you have it in Madison County? That's the easiest, because some of the other areas are, I don't mind driving. It's just depending on when they have it. So advocate for getting oriented. Advocate. When I went to the orientation, I was also advocating for myself as part of, because they were asking for people to introduce. And even though I could have said, sorry, I have my card on my wall. Hey, yeah, here's me. Here's me. I'm the owner of Compassion Crossing. I was like, I am an educator. I want to be able to educate others as a volunteer, or, and when I say that to you, I want to be transparent. Yes, there's a component that's a volunteer, but as I connect as a volunteer, I cannot advertise my service. There's an ethical boundary. I can't go to the people I'm volunteering with, look, I'm a doula, here, hire me. But what I can do is build relationships that over time, this is the long journey that over time, by the way, for a living, this is what I do. And over time, where it fits, not at the immediate volunteer moment, maybe not that month, maybe not the next, maybe not that same year. We're talking long journey. You're building up the relationships, you're building up the connections. And now I'm going to go on a rabbit trail with this one statement. Before becoming a nurse, I said a second career registered nurse, 30 years in information technology, system engineering, development, design, the heavy hitting stuff. On LinkedIn, my contact list was all IT. And then leasing, banking, because I did online banking. I worked in mainly the financial area. Those are all my connections. So when I became a nurse, I started building out my connections. When I became a hospice nurse, started building out my connections. Well, most of my book sales come from LinkedIn through proper, not flooding. I don't flood uh, the different groups, but proper social media outreach. That's where they come from. So here, by building the connection, so join the local medical reserve corps, reach out to your local Department of Health and say, I'd like to have a meeting. And then before the meeting, like one of the things that I was working on before I went to the meeting, I came up, what are my goals for the meeting? Write down the goals. You're more likely to achieve your goals when you write them down and reflect on them. So I wrote my goals. I wanted, I'm seeking to be trained a trainer for psychological first aid, train a trainer, the foundation course, any course to help with the medical reserve corps. The part of this is anytime you're asking somebody else to help you, I'm being transparent with you, you need to be able to answer the question, what's in it for them? Every relationship that you go to form, I strongly believe you have to answer the question, what's in it for them? I'm pausing because that needs to sink in. We're put on this world for more than me, myself, and I, and I'm not saying that our needs don't matter. But if we don't look at what's in it for them and be able to present what's in it for them, because every Department of Health is interwoven with the Medical Reserve Corps. So the Medical Reserve Corps relies on, interweaves the different departments of health in the different counties and areas. So, and this is not just a pretend what's in it for them. I want to be a trainer. I want to help other volunteers. And if there was a crisis here in Madison County or an area that I can get to, I want to help people in trauma. And that would be done as a volunteer basis. And I want to be prepared for that. That's what I have to offer them. And if they help me to be able to fulfill that need, we're helping each other. We're helping one another. They help me to get up. I help others to get up. So I was looking for that. But then I had for Compassion Crossing LLC. And again, I love tying the knots, if you haven't gathered that, to raise awareness on health and grief topics. To raise awareness on health and grief topics, because that's, in a way, maybe not on the grief end, but we actually did talk about that today. Wow, I was so thrilled. But the departments of health are about raising awareness, so wouldn't this be in their best interest as well? And it helps me. So I was prepared. I had my packet. I didn't have to reference it, but I had printed out and had with me, you know, from my own research. I had this is 10 pages, 5 pages back and front. What are the different months for health awareness? I did bring my resume because I did not know if my resume, and yes, I have a long resume. If my resume, if they, if they'd come up, who are you, and why are you trying to do, and what gives, like I went in prepared, like, if they were going to ask me who am I brought my two different types of brochures because I do staff training and development, not just um, uh, life transition, end of life support. But I had a set of goals, but I wanted to focus on the goals that would be in support of what they do. So we're helping each other. It's not all about me, how we help one another. And the outcome of this, we're coming to the landing zone. The outcome of this is they gave me some names to reach out to, names and what organizations these people work with, why it would be beneficial. And we touched on some key points. Like they do want to do more, they want to provide more education on grief because there's a lot of potential for suicide when somebody's in a fatal loss, a young person. It may not have been a suicide, maybe it was a car accident or a drowning or something else. There's grief, there's loss. So they want to do more education on that. Uh, they're already doing diabetes awareness education, and one of the people they're going to connect me with is one of their own educators who's looking for people to come to their meetings, not just to educate about diabetes, but different topics. I brought up one of the statistics that they were not aware of. They knew it was low. They didn't know how low. Is I mentioned that in the United States of America, there's less than 40% of the population have up-to-date advanced directives. That's your living will and durable power of medical and financial attorney. Less than 40% nationwide. In Kentucky, less than 9%. So when I brought that up, like their eyes are looking up and say, that would be a good topic to talk about. So this is fruitful. So one, join the Medical Reserve Corps in your area. It's free. They pay for everything that, like, they had to do background checks. Thankfully, I don't think I needed to get fingerprinted. I don't remember that if I did, but they pay for all of that. They go through the process. Join the Medical Reserve Corps. Reach out to your local Department of Health. And then the last one, so you got 3 tips, is reach out and connect to your elder law attorneys, because they're working with people on their last will and testament. They're working with people on their trust. They're working with people who are open-minded about talking about their future, which gives you a door in, because part of the problem we have as as end-of-life educators is nobody wants to talk. It's not now, not me. I don't want to go there. So these are some windows for you to consider and look at and think about. If there's any future video topics you're interested, please comment below if you have any questions. I do my best to be non-judgmental. I'm compassionate about a lot of issues. I care. I love. Thank you so much. Take care and God bless.